Well, as I said, it's become extremely impossible to discuss things with Inmendy. It's too bad. I hate the feeling that it's been entirely futile exercise, because to me it's almost impossible for it to be a futile exercise because you're looking for disagreement. And so, there's a preference to people that are resilient and indomitable and just keep on going no matter what. But this use of language that Gary has, and the fact that I've realized that it's not just a spasmodic overreaction that he has, but it's actually more of a formula for what's now a long time practice of his, having his channel. So it's become a formula that he exploits. And so it's intentionality. It's easier to take somebody losing their shit when you think maybe it's an inadvertent result of their inability to do otherwise. So this probably won't last too long, and it's really sad. You can't double speed anymore. For some reason they switched that around. So let's see if this works. Okay.
Alright, draft physics video. Dealing with trolls. Yes, Puro. And the comment trolls and whatnot. So anyway, gotta play this stuff, I suppose.
You don't have to.
Arguments. So I'll play it somewhat fast to get to like the 3-minute mark, is where he just starts lying and lying and lying and lying. Just preposterous lies.
No, I don't. Nope, that's not when I start lying.
Alright, well, trying to have been watching some hearings come into this. And it's really, I think it's sad how impossible it's become.
Whatever that even means. Again, nothing will be articulated.
It means that you're such an asshole that it's impossible to talk to you about your insane ideas, which have psychological interest.
Here, what troll are you defending? What comment are you defending? Why don't you pick one of the idiotic comments to defend?
And yeah, a lot of people fail at talking to Gary for years. But whatever.
Yeah, well, whatever. Yes, by reputation. So, and again, if I never spoke to you or Hothladay, I wonder who would be, asshole.
Well, I mean, Conference Report and Great Text and DOS Spook and Bark Lord and, Derived Energy still would have been talking to me. And, I mean, on and on. There's quite a many people. Now, granted, when they took away the reply function, that sort of sterilized the community.
This is definitely a new level. I mean, first of all, he's very, very reactive to words like every word is a weird philosophy of science.
I don't have a whole lot of interest in somebody pointing to philosophy videos regarding making a counter-argument to a theory proposed. I just think that's incredibly bogus. I'm offering explicit theoretical explanations, a theory of evolution, say, as a creation theory. And then some idiot says, well, no, we have to talk about, like, for example, your idiotic personal philosophies where, no, we can't talk about evolution. We have to talk about we're a brain in a vat. Or we have to talk about how we're a dream a god is having. And I'm like,
no, you don't have to talk about that. I'm interested in that. You're trying to say I should talk about something else.
Talk about what the evidence is in the environment that we actually live in.
Yeah, the evidence is that we have the film strips, our full set of information. And so, therefore, everything that we're talking about is from that data set. So we've identified the data set. That's of value to people that really care about data. Not you, of course, but to people that care about data.
And what does the environmental evidence point to? I really don't give a shit about your cartoon theories about being super characters or fairies or Tinkerbell's orgasmic vagina goop.
And I don't care about your little theory where your brain, your bacteria brain, is supposed to be automatically sufficient to understand nature. And if it can't, then nature has to change. Okay, that sounds like a God theory to me. Like, I trust my intuition. That's my remaining God.
Or something. I don't care what you think you are. I want to have a conversation about what the actual reality points to, the ones we can.
No, you don't. You have no interest in what reality points to. That your whole scientific theory is a big giant rejection of the experimental evidence. You pretend it hasn't happened because what else can you pretend when you don't like reality?
Can see and touch and feel and interact with the real world. That's the place I want to talk about. I don't want to talk about your fantasy worlds.
Oh, that's stupid. I never do stupid stuff.
Well, that's the difference. I do like talking about other people's fantasy worlds. It's just I can never make this shit up myself, right?
No, I don't. I really don't. I talk about how the evidence is what logic's made out of. It's facts. The facts take...
That's a philosophy of science.
...care of themselves. I even did a description of it. I said, look, it's just simple. To connect the dots...
You even did a description, so how, like, what's the relationship between a description of how science works and the philosophy of science? Oh, the being the same thing. That would be their relationship.
...thing. And if you have lots of dots, you don't have to do any connecting. And if there's only a few dots, well, then it gets a little tricky to get the detail right, because you have to go in a little bit to get the smile right or some other kind of thing. So you have to have a little bit of cleverness in how you connect the dots. That's all there really is. And we're just saying whose picture of what the image looks like is better. The one with the wacky, jagged, silly dots of bent space and Huygens and Heisenberg magic, or my rational theory?
It's the Heisenberg stuff.
Philosophy is bad word. It's when you talk about how science is done. You say science should be done this way. It should be honest. It's not honest. Use its rule and study. This is should be concrete.
Well, look, it should have something called integrity. That's right. Scientists shouldn't...
Okay, this is philosophy of science, saying science should have integrity, which I agree with. It's an important part. Science is founded on honesty. Right? When you do dishonest science, it's not science. Right? But that's the kind of science you do, Gary.
Be little girls who jump to silly conclusions and see snakes everywhere, you know, or penises, whichever one scares them most. Yeah, they shouldn't be hysterical, doing hysterical science, and that's what it looks like. It's all this contrived crap. They just...
Well, I think that the way you do science looks pretty fucking hysterical.
Keep making up stuff to make their made-up story make sense.
That's in the subject of philosophy of science. Gary's not very interested in how words work.
I'm making an argument for an explicit theory. At this particular time, yes, the discussion really is...
No, you were talking about philosophy of science, and you're saying how it was bullshit, and in reality, you do philosophy of science.
Isn't about how you conduct a trial. The actual business is, let's have the fucking trial. So
no, you did say that how you conduct a trial is important. Obviously, how you conduct a trial is important. To just go have the trial and not worry about how it's conducted is, in fact, to not have a trial at all.
An argument. I'm willing to hear your arguments. I don't want to hear arguments.
No, you're not willing to hear the arguments. You are in denial. Listening to something and then going blah, 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 was all fake science is not willing to listen to. That's not actually what listen to means. Having been present when it was said and rejected it with denial and crying people's bad character is why they disagree with you is not actually what we generally mean by willing to listen to arguments. Now, for fuck's sake.
So they misrepresent the truth, and that's okay. Misrepresenting the truth is okay. That's good science.
And there's ways to dig into that. And, you know, Gary, it's fine if he does it, but it's not fine if other people do.
Well, again, where have you...
Okay, so I want...
It's not anything wiggling. It's not meant to be any particular phenomenon.
Oh, yeah.
No, particular time, yes, the discussion really isn't about how you conduct a trial. The actual business is, let's have the fucking trial. So make an argument. I'm willing to hear your argument.
Do you hear what he's saying? It's like, it doesn't matter how you have the trial, just have one. Like, hey, it's better at any trial. Dude, there's so many variations in what might constitute a trial. Like there's the Red Queen. She has a trial in Alice in Wonderland.
Arguments. I don't want to hear arguments about how to argue. Remember when you did that with Hofladay? And so instead of ever arguing, right, you can never do your little stick ham thing because you can never agree on how to argue. So you couldn't even have a discussion about a subject because you couldn't even agree on how to argue. Fucktards.
Well, we managed to have that discussion over time anyway.
You said that the stars are shaking because of Brownian motion?
No, I didn't say the stars are shaking. I'm saying we see the stars.
Duh. We see the stars. The stars look like they're wiggling because of Brownian motion. And I'm saying, no, that's not Brownian motion. Oh, this is pointless. See? It's pointless. Okay, we have to try harder here.
Stars shaking because we are moving. That's the visual limitation. That's why I see theoretically.
No, they're not. Okay, everybody, I assume this is a common knowledge thing, right? Everybody knows that the reason the stars shake is because of wind currents, right? Which is related to different densities of air, and the different densities have a lensing effect. Like a little pocket of warm air that was a lower density would cause a little distortion, and as these pockets move by in the atmosphere above you, it causes the star to twinkle. It's because of the atmosphere, and it's not Brownian motion, it's wind, it's weather, currents.
A microscope should be able to work all the way down, and a telescope should be able to work all the way out. But it's only a theoretical thing because, yeah, in the real world, all this little bits of motion is erasing all the details.
Mind-boggling.
Yeah, then everything that wiggles, that's called Brownian motion.
Well, yeah, Feynman would basically make that argument. Everything jiggles, that's right.
But I wasn't talking about everything jiggling. Everything jiggling, like an image jiggling in your eye socket, is not Brownian motion. Brownian motion is a particular phenomena. You might not have the internet, but you can find out on the internet it's a pretty specific phenomena.
His favorite word.
Everything that bends, that's diffraction, no.
Everything that bends is diffraction is yes, that is true.
See, no, bending is bending. Diffraction is a wave phenomena. The word is a retro, Latin word to talk about the bending of light for a few centuries. It's a wave phenomenon. Like when something reflects, you could call that a bend. That's not diffraction. If something's on a curved surface, right, there's a curved surface, a skateboarder, and his path bends, that's not diffraction. If a bicyclist is on his bicycle and after he goes through an intersection, goes diagonal and his path bends, that's not diffraction. That's not a correct use of the word.
Brownian motion is not anything wiggling. It's not meant to mean any particular phenomenon.
No, it's a particular phenomenon that affects all molecular structures because the atoms and the molecules are vibrating because...
Right, and that's not why the stars vibrate in your eye picture.
Because of the influences of the environment are chaotic and constant.
Diffraction is a particular phenomenon. It's a wave phenomenon, as a matter of fact.
Well, it is not, as a matter of fact, and I haven't even heard Feynman talk about Brownian motion being a wave.
Diffraction. Diffraction is a wave phenomenon.
Phenomenon.
And he's a hypocrite as could be. He says, oh, they just...
Okay, so he says I'm a hypocrite, so that...
Yeah, and I'm going to say why in a second. Good that you paused for your preparation. What the fuck?
That's okay. Let's write down these words. I'm a hypocrite as can be because I come up with an explanation that's rudimentary.
Oh, why don't you wait until I say why because you're a hypocrite? Because you'd rather put up a straw man. Oh, very intellectually giant.
And simple, like polarization. I argue that there's...
Oh, yeah, polarization.
It's hardly a bold statement.
Right, but it's hardly a bold statement. It's hardly a bold statement. And the plus and minus of this idea of polarization is conceptually crude and simple. And hypocrisy is coming, an accusation of hypocrisy.
Fuck you.
These mathematical things and whatnot, and virtual particles.
Okay, so he throws in a whole bunch of stuff. Mathematical things and virtual particles. The two things aren't exactly the same thing.
They aren't the same thing. Oh, no, but you complain about them. They're not exactly the same thing, but you do complain about them a lot. You're totally complaining, wacky, and it's just wacky.
But that's
just the thing. That's the difference between that and the thing, some sort of mechanical thing. Oh, wait, what were we even talking about? Oh, yeah, you're a fucking hypocrite.
Theories. Yeah, just like he invents red and blue arrows that turn at right degrees and whatnot. Because it's a theory, that's what you're supposed to.
Yeah, because you invent things to fit, oh, I need to explain something. And all scientists do that. The difference is that your inventions don't actually explain the thing. That's the primary difference.
Yeah, again, so let's just understand. I invented polarization. Hardly a...
Let's understand again. I didn't say you invented polarization. I said you invented red and blue arrows that naturally turn at a right angle. They go at right angles for a reason, because. That's what I said you invented. I didn't say you invented polarization. You don't even understand polarization. The Frisbee thing made me think, when you described the Frisbee, I thought he kind of gets polarization, but nope. You don't understand polarization. God only knows what polarization means in the lexicon of your definition of Brownian motion and diffraction. Polarization could just mean the color of something, or what category it goes into, or what dimensions it's in. Who knows? Not you. I'm not asking you. I don't think you know.
Bold and extraterrestrial style UFO kind of function. Huygens involves...
No, I didn't say you invented Huygens either.
A mystical ability of a photon.
No, I didn't say anything about the mystical ability of the photon being something you invented.
The simplest things in the known universe.
I didn't say that you invented anything simple.
To project.
I didn't say that you didn't invent a projection.
In a sense, a kind of radar.
I didn't say that you had any sense or understood radar.
And it's in front of itself.
And I never said anything was in front of itself. In fact, I told you that a wave function is not in front of the fucking photon. It is the fucking photon, is how the theory goes.
Act in the universe, and then the photon.
Okay, see, I don't want to get this upset, but what did it do? Okay.
Uses the information from that actor to decide where it's going.
Dude, the problem is, this system doesn't actually fit the evidence.
Okay, so that's a claim he's made. Now, no one's pointing out what doesn't fit the evidence. So by not fitting the evidence.
Well, for example, pressure gravity leads to a situation where things moving in space have friction, and they don't. So that's one of like 50 or 60 that could be worked out. You say that a laser would bend at a speed. The speed of the platform the laser is mounted on would affect where it hits a target also mounted on the same mount, and that's not true.
Evidence, that means his interpretation of the evidence. So he says you must believe that.
No, I don't say that people must believe things. I am interested in people that, you know, rebel against reason, because I'm curious, why do people do that? I can't figure out why people would choose to do that, and you're a good lesson in why.
Photons are waves, and you must believe that our evidence is nail in the coffin conclusive on that subject. There is no option to reject that as a theory and to say you don't have sufficient evidence of any wave function, and your own example.
Right, because, for example, the fact that all particles have diffraction patterns that we've tested so far shows that they all have a wave-like properties.
Examples demonstrate that in that single slit in water waves.
And it all comes down to the math. You would think, no, I can make a diffraction pattern with regular particles, but you can't. It's mathematically impossible. It's like trying to say, I can have a circular peg that goes in a square hole. It's just too big or it's too small, or there's a way. I'll get around to it. It's 1,000,001. It's difficult, but it could be done. And you guys just say it can't be done.
Nothing in common with single slits in light waves.
Their constructs do, and that raises the question.
Okay, their constructs do not, and that's what's been pointed out. So again, another lie.
See, he has no idea what even is being talked about right now. He's totally, like, absolutely. I was saying he was a hypocrite because he complains that scientists create these, you know, just computational artifacts like a virtual particle to, you know, to like have the cables behind the, you know, the stage to move things around. Maybe that's real, maybe it's just part of stagecraft, but it can be used to reproduce the results. In other words, they see the results and they try to reverse engineer mathematical and other devices that could explain what they see. They're reverse engineering what they see into maybe an explanation. Then you could take that explanation over here, make a prediction, and if you get your prediction, that's pretty impressive. And that's what Gary does. This is the hypocrisy part. Gary invents red arrows and blue arrows, and they go pating, and sometimes they're a flock of fish. He invents these things to explain what he thinks he's seeing. Now, the problem is he doesn't know what he's seeing. He's in denial. He says, nobody's ever done the single slit experiment. He can prove it by showing you pictures that people have done of single slit experiments, which proves they've never been done, obviously. And right now, what the fuck is he talking about? He's not talking about that he's defending himself. He's defending himself against being called a hypocrite because he bitches at physicists creating something like a virtual particle to explain their system. But he invents an unknown particle called a red and blue arrow, or maybe they're black and red now, or whatever the fuck. And they, for some reason, go at right angles when they come into things, for some reason. That's just an invention, man. And then when he's facing the Feynman thing about why the pressure gravity idea just doesn't hold up water, he's like, well, I'll solve that. Give me a couple weeks. Okay, it squeezes. And, you know, inertia. Brownian inertia, maybe. That was it. And that's boom. I made the device that answered that question. But I don't have math that shows that my answer to this question and my answer to this question don't contradict. And guess what? They do. They all contradict. There's no mathematical coherency between them. When a mathematical system has to take them all into account, it won't be able to, because there are contradictions. And so I'm pointing out the hypocrisy that other people make devices, and then there's ways to try to justify them over time and even find out that maybe, like the quantization of energy in a photon, that they're a real physical phenomena. And you could find those red and blue arrows. I'm sure you think that that would happen, right? So that's the same, but you say they're assholes and you're okay to do it. And that's what you're being accused of. And what are you actually talking about now that you interrupted so much that you actually changed the topic in your own head? In his own head, he's changed the topic. He's not dealing with the accusation of being a hypocrite for the reason I just said, and probably not even the issue of being a hypocrite anymore.
About what the evidence is.
The evidence is. See, he didn't go on to deal with, he was defending himself against the charge of hypocrisy for a particular reason.
The quantization of energy, those were also, hey, they came out of a model that didn't work, and people are like, well, do they correspond to something real, or are they just mathematical mechanisms?
And I'm still explaining to him what the accusation of hypocrisy is, or to the audience, because I didn't make this video to him.
They correspond to what
I didn't expect to be answering him.
You can see and touch and feel and interact.
But then I saw you made this video, and so I thought, well, you know, if you talk to somebody, they reply, should try again.
With the real world, that's the place I want to talk about. I don't want to talk about your fantasy worlds.
So now he's just in a parallel thing. Now it doesn't matter. He's not even going, what was Piro talking about again? It doesn't matter. He's just talking in his parallel thing. He's going to pause my video, act like he's answering me, and it has nothing to do with the fact that right now I'm explaining my charge that he's hypocritical.
Oh, that's stupid. I never do less.
You see what I mean about this is especially disappointing? Because I'm looking for people that will go ahead and disagree and are able to have a disagreement. And if they can come back and on many subjects, then that's great. That's of value. But now I find out that he's just speaking his own language while other videos are interspersed as props. Like Brownian motion and diffraction is bending, and that's especially disappointing. But I don't think it was always like this. I'm sorry, I don't care what anybody says. I don't think it was always like this. This is some sort of 10-minute of internet fame or something, so he's got a gimmick that he does with his idea of his audience, not his real audience, and this is what it means to him, right? He's not engaging with, he was just accused of hypocrisy for a particular reason, which I just repeated to you all, and he's pretending something else is going on. Ah, shit. I did it again.
Same function. Single slit, double slit, it's exactly the same function. There isn't something else. So I've perpetrated some lie. I wish you would. These are personal attacks against my integrity.
Yeah, your integrity sucks.
The quantization of energy, those were also, hey, they came out of a model that didn't work, and people are like, well, do they correspond to something real, or are they just mathematical mechanisms?
They correspond to what model that when worked. The particle model has never been the exception.
So now he's just going to talk about that, but remember this was an example of other scientists inventing devices, mathematical devices, or other kinds of devices to explain what we see. And that he calls that bullshit, but he does that.
Accepted model. Because, frankly, when they had the original model, they didn't even know how to describe any of this stuff in terms of its proportion to the rest of the atom, because they didn't know what atoms were. So their model couldn't be anywhere near complete.
I'm going to have to study some of his older videos to just see if he did obfuscation by asterisks this badly. And because I just thought he can't concentrate. And now it's like, no, this is a technique. He doesn't want to answer the accusation. He'll spend 10 minutes on the accusation, but not to actually deal with it, to do something else that's very hard for me to figure out what it is. But that makes sense because it's something from within his worldview that is a distortion of reality, that it's not a mere inverse or a backflip. It's a totally inside out and halfway upside down thing that's incredibly asymmetric. It's hard to map it back to what in reality might he be reacting to.
I'm just saying now we can make a more complete model of part.
Right? This is not a reaction to my accusation that he's a hypocrite, because he's not talking about, it's not in his mind at all.
Particulate physics, which is a huge difference. But again, what exactly, where are you claiming that the particle theory failed for some substantial reason?
Not what I was talking about. I was talking about physicists coming up with things like virtual particles as devices to explain what we do see, and how all scientists have to do that sort of thing. Right? That has to happen, and then you go and see if there's a material basis to those artifacts, or if possibly the artifacts are just, you know, a system that really describes something, but the material elements, the actual gears and currents in reality, you know, are different places, right? Like a coordinate system that you use is like here, like for example with temperature, just arbitrarily chose a 0 point for Fahrenheit, you know, 0, you know, and you know, by the time they made centigrade, it's like, well, how about freezing point of water? But it could be anywhere. You could choose anywhere, but freezing point of water is really useful considering how important the freezing point of water is to humans.
Stage trap behind the scenes to make what's on stage look right.
Well, what else is Huygens? So, I mean, I've already been over this, but I mean, so now he's going to start, you know, really aggressively lying. But
okay, the point is that Huygens is an artifact idea. Is it really going on? Is every point on the wave really like a wave source or not? I actually think yes. That makes total sense. Because if you somehow masked out all of the other wave, but just one little section left, what would you have? Well, like a little drop. Little drop just above the water that was going to drop down, and it would ripple out from it. So yeah, I think that is physical. But it's also definitely invented as a mathematical artifact. And the idea that there's an infinite number of those, that's obviously a mathematical artifact, because there's a finite number of water molecules. So there can't be an infinite number of wave sources and a finite number of molecules. So, okay, ultimately, technically, it's an artifact. That's beside the point. I'm saying you're bitching at people for making the Huygens kind of artifacts, but you're making red and blue arrows. I know his brain is able of remembering that for only 10 minutes in, so he's choosing not to. He's not choosing to forget it per se, he's choosing to take the path that forces it. And I think Hythloday is right, and I'm right, and that's for his audience. He's actually doing it to his own brain, pushing it off, but he's doing it for the audience is why he's doing that. And I think back in the old days, when he was just as irate as now, he would collect more of that and shove less of it off. Okay, I'm going to get a stopping point, but I think I'll continue.
I mean, I've shown you videos of professors at universities and Richard Feynman, and I've shown them misdescribe what happens in the two-slit experiment in the sense that they'll say, look, there's 2 slits, and if we cover one of them, you just get a lump, and if you cover the other one, you just get a lump.
The reason they say you just get a lump is because diffraction is really, diffraction lines are very subtle. And when they're talking about the lump, they're talking about the diffraction lump. And yes, there's some lines in it. And you know that. And you have pictures of it from scientists. And Feynman knew that. So dishonest with yourself.
Lump. And we've known since Newton, over 300 years, that you don't get a lump. You get a pattern. So they misrepresent the truth, and that's okay. Misrepresenting the truth is okay. That's good science.
And there's ways to dig into that. And, you know, Gary, it's fine if he does it, but it's not fine if other people do.
Well, again, where he makes the accusation, where's the evidence backing it up? Oh, that's right, there is none.
He makes the accusation. He doesn't actually remember the accusation right now, folks. He doesn't remember what the accusation was. The accusation is that he also invents these artifacts. Specifically right now. But I saw a video of like 5 years ago where he was inventing these artifacts about geometry, and these things were shaped like trapezoids and stuff. He invents artifacts regularly. Right now, it's red and blue arrows. And the fact that for some reason they come in and out at right angles, and there's something called polarity. Those are artifacts. It's just like virtual particles. Nobody's seen that they're real. The difference is with virtual particles, even the physicists say, well, they're not real. These are calculation tools. That's why they call them virtual still, because they're not saying they're really there. But then some physicists talk like, no, it is really there. But it's not there. They're not. They call them virtual particles because in that case, they're saying we think these are artifacts of our calculation technique that we need in order to make the calculation doable for us with the math we're using. They are the math we're using.
He's a troll. You're just a fucking lying troll.
No, but I've been thinking about the fact that maybe I should bring out the troll. It's been 20 years, and if you guys are just going to be trolling me and doing this kind of thing where you go off in this direction, acting like you're responding to me, and you don't even remember it's an accusation of hypocrisy. So I'm going to come back for part 2. It's Friday night. This is how you have fun when you're a total egg nerd head.